Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Caregiving Gen X Style. I am Steve Mullen.
And I am Jennifer Mullen.
We have, at various times during our time doing this podcast, talked about the types of caregivers, even the styles of caregivers. But in this episode, we're going to talk about the different types of elderly loved ones, the caregivees, as it were. Turnabout is fair play. There are a bunch of different types, and we're going to talk about them in this podcast. But first,
actually, we are going to turn things around a little bit in this episode. I know that normally I get to talk about my mom first. You'll understand why in a moment, why we're going to talk about my mom second tonight. So, Steve, how's your mom?
She's doing fine now. I think it's been kind of a nationwide thing. There's been a lot of viruses running around the communities lately, and one of them got to my mother's assisted living. We believe it was norovirus, and if you've ever had it, you don't want it.
Yuck.
You don't want anything to do with that thing.
Yeah.
And it did run its way through the assisted living. They had to go on quote unquote lockdown. The dining room was closed. Activities were canceled. All trips outside the building were canceled. And basically everyone was told, stay in your room. And it lasted at least a week and a half, I think. And at the end of it, my mother was going a little batty.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which is funny because when she lived independently, there were just multiple days in a row where she didn't leave the house. I don't know what's different now.
Well, first of all, she had a bigger space in which to roam.
This is true. Yes.
So, I mean, being basically confined to just 2 rooms and also to know that there's activity literally right outside your doorway, some activity of healthcare professionals walking up and down the hallway, whatever, but you can't talk to anybody.
Yeah,
That's pretty...
it's just the CNA. She was actually trying to find a way to get the phone numbers of some of her BFFs in the assisted living. We need to prepare for this for the next time. She needs a little phone book.
Right, that's something you don't think about because they just see each other every day.
Every single day, multiple times.
It's not like they have a choice even to a certain extent because they're all just there together. But yeah, then suddenly like she didn't even know how to talk to her friend Pat.
Nope, she did
One
not.
of her BFFs that I helped her meet on her first day. If you've been listening to previous episodes, you know this.
Yeah, she said, do you think I could sneak up to Pat's apartment and give her my phone number? I said, well, I don't think they'd really want you to do that. However, I could give your number to the people at the front desk and ask them to take it up to her. Or for that matter, I could go up there.
It's like passing notes in class.
Really was.
That's what it reminded me of when you mentioned that.
But things are back to normal now. Thank goodness. It really reminded me of COVID, and I don't want to live through those days again.
No.
But everything's fine now, and we're back to normal. Thank goodness. Of course, it snowed today, so there's not a lot going on outside the building, but everything's going fine inside the
dining
building.
room's back, hub of activity, dining room and other common areas.
And Jennifer, how's your mom?
My mom is great. Do you want to know why?
I do. I think I know.
Today, as we sit here recording this, is her 85th birthday.
Hooray.
Oh my gosh. 85th birthday.
Very
so exciting. Now, as you just mentioned, we have had some weather here again today. Man, we haven't had weather around here in years. And suddenly this winter.
We have discussed on this podcast before that I am a weather nerd, a weather geek, a weather enthusiast. I'd like to point out that we have weather every day.
Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, we've had wintry weather, which we haven't had for a very long time. And the original plan for today was my brother and I had taken the day off from work. My brother and I were going to pick her up, take her out for some lunch and, I don't know, maybe take a nice drive, something, and then just generally, spend some time together. But of course, the weather was moving in. The wintry weather was moving in. So we are nothing if not adaptable. We actually got to her apartment very early this morning and decided to do coffee. And my brother made a homemade pecan pie, which was what my mom requested. So we had coffee and pecan pie this morning for her birthday.
For breakfast?
I brought
pie for breakfast, not a bad thing.
I bought her a shiny 85 crown that was really fun, super sparkly. So we put that on her along with a sash and my brother brought an 8 and a 5 candle, stuck that in the middle of the pecan pie, and we sang happy birthday to her. And actually we had a really nice visit for a couple of hours before the wintry weather really started to come in and we both needed to get home. So Mom's doing great. It was a lovely day. The best part about Mom's, well, maybe not the best part about her birthday, but I am very excited because on our last episode, we invited anyone who has been listening and knows all about Gagi, anyone who wanted to send her a birthday message to please do that. So I am very excited that we have not one, but 2 voicemails to share with you and, of course, with her, because she does listen to the podcast, so she will hear these. The first one comes from Fontaine. Let's give it a listen.
Hi, Jennifer and Steve. I just listened to your latest podcast, and I wanted to tell you that my mother was called Gagi, so it's real sweet and fun to hear you all talking about your Gagi. Anyway, I wanted to say happy birthday to Gagi, and I'm glad you're doing so well. It's really good to hear good news about you. Y'all are doing a great job with this program. I just love it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, let me tell you about why I love that voicemail so much. First of all, I just love the fact that we got a couple of voicemails wishing Gagi happy birthday. It's amazing. But Fontaine, you may recall that on a previous episode, I talked about my friend who no longer lives in the U.S., lives overseas, but I had the good fortune of being able to see her several times when she was home over the holidays. And she shared our podcast with her mom, and then she was telling me how she was hearing our voices coming from the other room as she was passing by her mom's sewing room. That's her mom. Fontaine is her mom. So I am so excited. Fontaine, thank you so much for taking the time to send us that. And actually, I remembered from working with my friend 20 plus years ago, I remember her talking about her grandmother named Gagi. So it was very funny. Gagi's name came about actually from our daughter. She actually was going to originally go by Grammy, but our daughter Hannah started calling her Gagi, and it stuck. And of course, it's perfect. Can't imagine calling her anything else now.
No, that Grammy sounds weird now.
Oh, it sounds so weird. Gagi is so much more appropriate for her. So that was so exciting. And another reason I loved Fontaine, that's the first time I've heard your voice, and I could totally hear Jessica's voice in there too. So that was fun all around. Thank you so much. Fontaine, I feel like there's an email coming your way soon because we are going to have to meet each other. All right. So on to the second voicemail. The second comes from a gentleman who did not give his name. So we're going to call him Mike.
Quote unquote Mike.
I forgot to say quote unquote. That's right. And I forgot we have to make up names and say quote unquote every time we say them.
Yeah.
All right. Quote unquote Mike. He has a birthday wish for Gagi, plus a comment on our last episode, which was about dealing with senior living management.
First off the bat, happy birthday, Gaga. Congratulations, as well deserved. First time, long time caller, listener. Wanted some feedback on the last episode about communicating with senior living management. Just heard a couple different things about communication and kind of escalation when not getting response. And there's one piece of advice that has served me well as a family member of my grandfather who was in a community out of state and was not getting the results that were expected on the front end, and communication wasn't ideal, to say the least. Recommend it was said of always trying like normal communication via email, or even if you do choose phone and voicemails, trying to do the normal channels first. But on follow-up, if you're trying to escalate and not receiving a call back, there's something that has served me well personally is when you do that follow-up call about the email or the voicemail where you haven't gotten the message the first time, referencing or asking is what I did, is just ask if I should call the state ombudsman or licensing office wherever it is. And I come from a state where that is public information that is posted in the community. In Virginia, where every community is required to have the name to the ombudsman and the state licensure posted within the community and can be offered upon request to the front desk. Even in other states, because I was dealing with a grandfather in Milwaukee, it is readily available information online through different state agencies. Finding the name of the ombudsman and the state licensing officer and referencing that specific name in the voicemail is what proved to be very successful for me in getting a call back. Recommend using like a reasonable time frame as well, saying that like, hey, if I hear back from you by end of business tomorrow, with some sort of next steps or resolution towards this and getting a good situation. But looking up the name of the state ombudsman or even just referencing it is a good way to help with the escalation technique and making sure that we create a little bit of motivation with the people that don't seem to be motivated to help your loved one is something that has helped. Thank you for your time. Great show as always. And thank you.
Quote unquote, Mike, first of all, thank you so much for your birthday wishes. I can't wait for my mom to hear both of the birthday wishes that she got on this episode. And also, thank you for sharing that recommendation. That's actually some really good advice there.
Yeah, it's a really good piece of advice. I think anything you can do to incentivize the management to get back to you, to do what you want. It's sort of you say carrot and a stick. There's no carrot there. It's just the stick, basically saying, oh, by the way, hey, do you have that number of that ombudsman? Do you have the number of the state licensing people? I do feel like that would get their attention.
Yeah.
I wish I'd known that earlier.
It kind of stinks to a certain extent to feel like you have to do that. But you know what? When you are in these situations, and we know, Steve, because we have been there, you will do whatever you need to do.
Oh, absolutely.
And even if you're not normally someone who, resorts to something like that, these are situations, all sort of rationale goes out the window when you want your mother or your father or your loved one taken care of. It doesn't matter. And if that works, use it.
Yep. So, I like it. I like it. Quote unquote, Mike. Thank you. All right. In this episode, we're talking about all of the different types of people we care for. As we've said many times in this show, there are many different types of loved ones, but we're going to give it a try in categorizing them as best as we can and talk about how to deal with each one. We have identified 6 different types of loved ones, and I'm certain, 100% that we're missing a few.
Missing some.
So I'm going to encourage you now. I'll say it again at the end. If you come up with a type that you feel like we missed, let us know. Shoot us an email, shoot us a voicemail, whatever.
Definitely. All right. Well, our first loved one is the couch potato. I'm kind of a couch potato sometimes too, so I'm not going to say that, but not all the time. But the couch potato does not care what is going on around them. They're more concerned with their TV show, their newspaper, their book, their puzzle, whatever it is, that's what they're focused on. So it can be kind of a sad way to be, and frankly their inactivity may be due to depression. That is something to think about, definitely, if you have someone in your life like this. So the biggest trick really is to try to get them involved in anything, right? If they're able, get them to help you put away groceries or help with the dinner or even make a list of chores that they should do every day. And I know we talked about this in a previous episode too, just with needing to keep your loved ones active. But, simple things, even like emptying trash cans, whatever might need to be done around their home. Try to get them outside every day just for a little while.
That's a big one.
Right? I mean, even a simple thing like that can keep them engaged in the world.
And for sure, if it is depression, we know that getting some sunshine, getting some vitamin D can help with that.
Oh,
for
definitely.
Sure.
I mean, I feel that way, right? When we've had the wintry weather that we've had, and you're inside for a couple of days, and then, even walking out into the, cold garage or onto your front porch for a moment and getting that fresh air feels fantastic.
Absolutely. So our next type of loved one is the worrier. So the worrier, that's fairly self-explanatory. They are concerned about everything. Will they get home in time for their favorite TV show? Are the grandchildren doing okay with their careers or school? What if this? What if that? What if the other? So interestingly, one theory about the worrier is that they worry because of lack of control. They worry because they can't do anything else. Another possibility is your worrier's dealing with anxiety. I looked it up, and according to one article I read during the research, up to 14% of older adults may have an anxiety disorder. And if you suspect that your worrier's actually dealing with real anxiety, it's best to get them checked out by a mental health professional. But aside from that, if you're just dealing with a garden variety worrier, again, things like getting them away from the source of their worry. If they're worried about what's going on in the world, turn off the TV. If they're worried about their kids, let's say, let's just distract them with something else. Again, walks in the sunshine can really help, and a conversation maybe to go with it. If you walk with them, just kind of distracting conversation. If they're worried about the news of the day or whatever, just something to distract them. Yeah. And if they're able, things like gardening can be a really good activity to take their minds off of it.
If they're physically able, for sure. And I mean, I know we've touched on this, I'm sure, probably more than once, but as people age and their world inevitably is going to get a little bit smaller, right? Certainly there are older people who still have a very active social life and maybe are here, there, and everywhere. But, there's a lot of older people whose social life has gotten a little bit smaller, so they have a lot more time on their hands to worry about stuff, right? I think they spend time worrying.
Our next type of loved one is what we call the sourpuss. And I wanted to read this part because I witnessed a woman in my mother's former assisted living who I actually nicknamed Sourpuss.
That's not very nice.
I could not remember her name, but I swear she just has had the sour look on her face all the time. So the Sourpuss complains a lot, and they're never pleased with anything. And this woman, she always looked unhappy, didn't have very many nice things about anything. Except one time she did tell me that I was a good son, which was nice. And it was rather shocking, to be honest with you.
See, though?
Very shocking. But so interestingly, that Sourpuss woman did end up moving into the memory care wing. And I do wonder if her demeanor had something to do with that. It's very possible.
Probably.
And once again, the Sourpuss could be dealing with depression. I mean, just nothing's good. Nothing's good at all. One thing that can help with that is involvement. Once again, find something they like to do and encourage them to do, whether it's a puzzle, whether it's walks, whether it's gardening, whether it's this, that, or the other. And it may be kind of hard because you really get sick of listening to complaints, but listen to them and don't try to fix them.
Yeah.
And we've said before on this show, sometimes a complainer just wants to hear someone say,
"You're right. That sucks."
Or "You're right. That sucks."
That's also, by the way, something you learn as a parent, speaking of sandwich generation.
And as a spouse. We talked about this in this episode, or in a previous episode.
And as a spouse too, yeah. But I mean, I definitely know. I know there were times with our daughter, like growing up, if she was having an issue, and I immediately want to jump in and try to fix things. And I remember her very vividly, one time saying, like, sometimes I just want you to say, like, yeah, that sucks. And I think that the elderly people in our life that we are taking care of may want that sometimes too. All right. Oh, it's so perfect that I actually am going to talk about this next type of loved one, and that is the control freak. I might possibly know one or two things about being a control freak. Maybe.
How?
I mean, how, right?
How do you know these?
What do you mean, how do I know these things?
Tell us all.
I am being self-aware. I'm practicing self-awareness right now. I often want to control all things.
No.
Okay.
The hell you say.
All right, we're going to move on now. So seriously, though, like, this is the person, when we're talking about a control freak in this particular situation, this is a person who probably is really trying to cling to their independence, and we 100% completely understand this. We've talked about this before. When you get older, when you get less mobile, there are fewer and fewer things that you can do without help, and that can often be very hard to accept. So these control freak caregivees, they've decided they need to control everything and do everything themselves. So, it might be that they lived by themselves for decades. My mom is an example of that. Your mom is an example of that. And, they didn't really think they needed help from anyone. But they need help. They deserve it. They just simply maybe don't want it. Many times they not only want to control their own lives, but also yours, which that's true. So, and I feel certain we've talked about this too. My brother and I talk about how my mom, definitely likes to direct things.
Oh,
definitely.
Yes. Well, we're going to talk about the director later.
The
director's coming up.
Oh, stay tuned. Yeah. Sneak peek. Really, there's not an easy answer for this type of person. Stubbornness is one of the hallmarks of the control freak, but they might also just be scared because they think that accepting the help is just one step closer to the end, to dying. So, true. If you have somebody like that in your life and you can just stop for a moment, step back and think about maybe what their thought process is, that might be helpful in trying to deal with them.
Is that what I'm supposed to do with you?
That's a different situation. I like to control things because, most of the time.
What?
Oh, I wasn't going to say that I'm right.
Well, that's where I figured you were going.
But,
yeah. Right.
Well, no, I was going there.
But you didn't. No. I just wanted to try to get you to do it.
All right, that is a squirrel moment. Let's move on to the next. This is not about this. This podcast is not about me, Steve.
No, it's about me.
Okay.
Anyway,
so the next one is
Pigpen.
Yeah, that's not you, really.
No,
I was
going
to try to insult you, but
nice try.
Couldn't
nice
even
try.
do that.
So Pigpen basically won't do anything for themselves, even if they're fully capable. It's really almost the opposite of the control freak in a way.
Kind of.
They don't pick up their messes. They don't wear clean clothes. They won't eat unless food's put right in front of them, and so on, and so on, and so on. And keep in mind, we're not talking about people whose mental or physical state keeps them from doing these things. They just refuse to do it. And once again, you might need to create a chore list and, lessons from the sandwich generation, like we did with our kids. The problem is, if they don't care enough to do it for themselves, they may not care enough to do the things on your list.
That's true.
And so these are the types of elderly loved ones who can reach a tipping point and become hoarders, where things are all over the place. Maybe not so much a hoarder, but just a place that's such a mess that it's not safe anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So what you might be seeing with this type of loved one is the beginning of dementia. You see a lot of this with dementia. It's fairly common knowledge. Changes in the brain can lead to changes in behavior. They may not comprehend the mess the same way you do. And this may be a sign that your loved one needs to be examined by a medical professional.
Yep.
Another reason is that they had a spouse who just did these things for them for so many years. And you now, as the caregiver, have replaced that spouse. For that type of loved one, some tough love may be in order. You may need to even take the next step of family therapy if you think that a neutral person can get to them. It may also be depression. Once again, we talked about that earlier. A lot of this stuff can be a result of depression. They just don't feel like doing anything, so they're just going to let this mess collect around them.
Yeah, I think there could be a lot of different reasons. If you start to observe this specific type of behavior, I definitely think it is worth. The other ones, we're kind of laughing about them, joking about them a little bit. Control freak, sourpuss, couch potato, things like that, but this one in particular, I definitely think, could be a sign of other things, as you said, and it is really important to pay close attention to that. All right, let's move on to our final loved one.
And I want you to read this one.
Yes, again, the way we have gone back and forth, This has landed perfectly, and there was a little sneak preview on this.
Yes.
Because this one might be the most prevalent, and it is the director.
The director.
We
you
both,
and me,
Jennifer
absolutely.
and Steve, we know all about this type of elderly loved one. So the director will tell you where everything should go, how everything should be, even if they're living in your home. I mean, we don't have that specific situation. However, I can definitely imagine it if Gagi were living here or if Nana were living here. They would be directing us all over the place. As we said a few episodes back, it's even a gauge for how I know how my mom is feeling. When she starts feeling better, she starts directing. So there have been times where she's been in the hospital, and then the second she starts pointing to things and telling you to get her something or asking for you to get her something, but usually it starts with the telling you. And
with my mother, it's telling.
Yeah, sometimes you have to remind them of their manners.
Yes,
Again,
you do.
Just
you really
like
do.
When you have kids, I swear there are times where my brother and I have to say to Mom, could you say please?
I've done that with my mother. She'll say, give me that. And I actually look at her and say, please.
Right. And then actually, and I just had this with Gagi a couple days ago. I can't remember the specific thing, but she said, I don't know, maybe I was like scooping out the litter box in her apartment. And she's like, oh, the plastic bags are in the cabinet under the microwave in the kitchen. Really? Because I didn't know that, because I haven't been scooping out litter in your apartment for the last 5 years. Like, what do you mean? But she's got to direct, go here, do that. This is there.
So my mother, also director, as you mentioned, I visit her, and typically the first half hour of my visit is taken up by putting this away. I need you to buy this on Amazon, fixing the bed, fixing the TV, get this off the top shelf. I frequently say, she'll say, well, I need such and such. And I'll actually say sometimes, your I need is my command. And she doesn't.
That is some passive aggressiveness.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I learned that one from you.
Yeah.
But it usually goes right over her head, and it just makes me feel better. But
I mean, if you've got any ideas on how to handle the directors, just let us know. Right. And it's not horrible. And in fact, we mostly try to find amusement out of it, I think. sometimes it can be
a little annoying. It goes over
to
annoyance at
times. Sometimes it can be
does.
a little annoying. Your mom in particular, have we talked about this?
No,
about
we
how
really haven't.
When we walk into her apartment.
It's typically just me, but when I bring Jennifer or the kids or one of the other kids.
And I don't even care because I'm used to it too, but she doesn't see the kids as much. And so like when we went over for, I guess the most recent time was Christmas, and we walk in the door and she was talking to you and just you and started to tell you to do things.
To-do list.
And I will say, Hannah kind of leaned over and whispered to me. She was like, well, hello to you too. I mean, they've gotten used to it. And once we settle in and like once your mom settles into like the fact that she also has company, it's fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, for these visits, and this is going a little off topic, but I mean, with these visits, we've got a pattern. I mean, a very, very, very well-established pattern, at least she and I do. I come in, first half hour is doing stuff, and it's going down her to-do list that she's come up with.
Yeah.
And then once that is done, we sit and then we chat and we catch each other up on stuff. And it does, unfortunately, she wants to keep that pattern even if I bring one of the kids with me. And that's kind of stinks for them, but it's just the way it's
what's the old saying
works.
About like paying attention to history so you're not doomed to, repeating yourself? Yes. I do wonder, like, can we learn from these situations, right? Let's take the history of the interactions with your mom when you go over, which are the majority of the interactions. But maybe what you could do, the learning here is the visit before. You could say to your mom, hey, Mom, when we come over on, I forget what day that was, like a Sunday. When we come over on Sunday with the kids, please, let's make sure that when the kids walk in the door, just take a few minutes to stop and enjoy the fact that they're there. Like, I will get to the list of whatever things you need for me to do, but like, don't forget just to stop and say hi. It's okay. I have to
be a little careful with how I voiced that. That it doesn't upset her. But so what do you do with the director, Jennifer?
What do you do with the director? I again, I think if anyone has any ideas, let us know. The director's been, that's someone who's been in charge for a really long time.
It's true, though. I mean, your mother and my mother both. Right. I mean,
they're not giving up that control.
No, my mother lived alone and was fully in charge of everything for 20-some years. Your mother, she's been in charge for a long, long time.
As long as I can remember, since I was a kid.
The way it is.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, I think it gets exacerbated actually in a lot of ways because, if they don't get around as well as they used to, or maybe they don't remember things as well, like it is what it is. It's fine. And for those of you who've been listening for a long time, you know that we have copious notes that Steve has typed up for us to work our way through the episode. Yes. And I just noticed.
Did you?
The next
bullet
point
you noticed
in our
that, did
copious
you?
notes.
Can I go through it?
Oh, you can go through it all right. Are you sure?
Am I sure I want to do this?
Proceed with caution.
Okay.
Steve.
All right. Well, there's a good bit of distance in between us.
For now.
I'd like to say there's a fairly safe bet. It's a fairly good prediction. Jennifer is going to be a director when she gets older because really she kind of has those tendencies. Really, the control freak and the director are very similar.
I thought you were going to say like that's the worst combination.
No.
I'm okay with it. I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm a little bit of a control freak and also a director.
A lot.
I know.
Yes.
I mean, you know what? Whatever.
And where would I be without my direction?
Where would you be without my direction? That's a great question.
So that's our list. We know that we have left some types out, and we want to hear from you. If you have one that comes to mind, please contact us, let us know about it, and really let us know how you deal with that type of person. And we'll come up, if we get enough, we'll come up with a listener submission episode and do one just talking about the ideas that you have.
Yep. And again, thank you guys so much for listening, and for Fontaine and quote unquote Mike, who took the time to send us a birthday wish for Gagi. Really appreciate that. It's a pretty big deal to hit 85. And
my mom's getting there in just a few months.
Yep, a few more months.
Our mothers are close to the same age.
That is a milestone birthday without a doubt. So I appreciate those of you out there who, and even if you didn't call in, appreciate those of you out there who sent birthday wishes. our way for Gagi. So thank you.
Exactly. And thanks to everyone for listening to this episode. If you want to get in touch with us, whether it's, another birthday message for Gagi, I don't know that we'll play it on the show, but we'll play it for her.
Yeah, we will.
Absolutely.
Why would we not?
Maybe we will.
Listen, you guys can send birthday messages for Gagi all throughout her entire 85th year around the sun, and we will play them.
Okay. That is a promise from Jennifer. So if you want to send a birthday greeting for Gagi, if you want to send us, a type of loved one that we've totally skipped or missed or whatever, you can email us at caregivinggenxstyle@gmail.com. You can send us a text or leave us a voicemail. Voicemail's the best. 804-723-1221 is the number. You can find us on Twitter. The handle is @GenXCaregiving. We're also on Blue Sky. The handle is the same, @GenXCaregiving. And if you want to go on Facebook, I always say this, we post the most on Facebook. I will post stuff on there every few days, or I'll try to anyway. You can find us there by going to the show notes for the episode. There is a link there. That's the best way to go to get there. We hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.
Good night, everyone.